So today, we're going to get into the science of why you might be one of those people who cries easily, and more importantly, why that's not some kind of weakness, but actually a sign that your brain is wired to experience the world in a much richer, deeper way.
Have you ever been there? You're watching TV and suddenly an insurance commercial has you tearing up. Or maybe you saw a video of a rescued dog and next thing you know, it's a full-on cry fest. If you've ever been called too sensitive, you're about to find out why that might just be a huge compliment.
Because here's the scientific truth of it. This isn't some flaw in your character. Your brain is quite literally wired to process the world with incredible depth and detail. Think of it as a biological feature, not a bug. In fact, if you do cry easily, there's a good chance you're what psychologists call a highly sensitive person, or HSP. And listen, you're far from alone in this. Research shows that about 1 in every 5 people is born with this trait.
Yeah, this is way more common than you might think. We're talking about 20% of the population, and some researchers even think that number could be closer to 1 in 3. And just to be super clear, this is not a disorder. It's a completely normal, totally healthy variation in how human beings are built.
So, what is actually going on inside your head? Well, our first reason gets right into your brain's anatomy. You are, quite literally, wired differently.
It really comes down to a specific gene that affects an area of your brain called the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. Let's just call it the VMPFC. Now, this region is a major player in how we regulate our emotions. For highly sensitive people, it processes emotions way more vividly. That means whether it's overwhelming joy or some deep sadness, you just feel it all with more power and intensity. It's by design.
Okay, so let's move on to our second reason and see how this unique wiring gives you what you could honestly call a superpower, this heightened sense of empathy. Get this, brain scans have actually shown that when HSPs look at pictures of other people, the empathy centers in their brains light up with way more activity. You're not just observing someone else's feelings, you're basically an emotional sponge, you're absorbing them. Now, while this makes you an incredible friend, it also means someone else's sad story can trigger your own tears in an absolute heartbeat.
All right, now I want to talk about a really cool scientific analogy that just perfectly captures this trait. It's the idea of orchids versus dandelions.
So think of it like this. Most people are like dandelions. They're tough, they're robust, and they can pretty much thrive anywhere you plant them. But about 20 to 30% of us, we're orchids. Orchids are beautiful, but they're also super sensitive to their environment. If things get too chaotic, or too loud, or just too much, an orchid gets overloaded. And crying, that often becomes the body's natural pressure release valve for all that sensory input. And that pressure release valve idea leads us directly into our fourth point, what's actually happening with the chemical function of your tears. And trust me, it's a fascinating biological process. Seriously, think of crying as a biological hack. It's true. The emotional tears you cry are chemically different from the tears you get when you're, say, chopping an onion. They are literally designed to make you feel better. So how does that even work? Well, when you have a good emotional cry, your body releases 2 really important chemicals. Oxytocin, which you probably heard of as the love or bonding chemical, and endorphins, which are basically your body's own natural painkillers. So the process is pretty simple, but it's so powerful. An emotional trigger happens, right? Your body responds by releasing these calming chemicals through your tears, and as a result, your entire nervous system gets a kind of reset. You are literally flushing stress out of your body. Okay, and for our final scientific reason, let's look at something that really affects all of us. If you've been feeling extra teary lately, the answer might actually be in your sleep schedule. Oh yeah, studies show that sleep deprivation seriously messes with your brain's ability to regulate emotion. The prefrontal cortex, that's your rational command center, it gets weakened. And this lets the amygdala, your emotional center, just run wild. Without enough sleep, you're basically just walking around as an emotional raw nerve. Okay, so we understand the why now, but what about when you're in a meeting or on a date and you absolutely need to hold it together? Let's talk about a really practical pro tip.
Here's a quick technique that experts suggest. First, press your tongue firmly against the roof of your mouth. It sounds weird, but this physical distraction can be surprisingly effective. Combine that with slowing your breathing way down, and then grounding yourself by focusing on a physical object, like a pen in your hand. It's a quick way to regain control right when you need it most.
So, here's really the main thing to take away from all this. Crying easily is not a flaw.
It's a physical sign of a nervous system that is just deeply connected to the world around it. You don't feel too much, you're just a finely tuned instrument.
So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. Because, acknowledging these moments can be a really powerful way to embrace how you're wired. What's the most random or unexpected thing that's brought you to tears recently? Just think about it, and remember, you're in very, very good company.